Presented by Prize Picks. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 and use the promo code. Welcome one and all to Light Years. Tommy, that was on the one hand exactly what the Warriors needed. A beatdown win on the front end of back-to-back, the final week of the season. We all know the congestion that's in place with the standings. Need easy wins, need seamless basketball. And on the other hand, you want to talk about a lifeless, hard to watch. Like it was man, the Suns made me feel like I was watching some 2004, 2005 Warriors. You want to talk about a team that has quit, looks lifeless, disgusting. Wow.
That was one of the most pathetic performances I have seen from an NBA team in years. Like that,
right?
From the opening tip of the game, they were just awful in every aspect of the game. No attention to detail, no energy, no care, no fight, no anything. And I mean, that's just where their season's at. They're officially eliminated from the play-in at this point. It's all bad in Phoenix right now. But at the end of the day, the Warriors came in and took care of business, which is what matters at the end of the day. Like this team, they're obviously not messing around right now. They know what's on the line over these last 3 to 4 games at this point. And that was a professional win. It got a little bit sloppy there in the third quarter, but that's to be expected when you're up 35 at halftime.
I know. I don't even think you could talk about anything in the second half like with a real critical lens. Like the game was well over at halftime. It was mostly just don't do what the Minnesota Timberwolves did earlier tonight, which is 34-3 run to end the game. But anyway, that's a different story. We'll get to that a little later in the show. The numbers, if you want to just talk big picture, looking at this game, the numbers that jump out to me is 20 minutes for Draymond Green, 20 minutes for Jimmy Butler, 26 minutes for Steph. None of them played in the fourth quarter. Hell, most of them didn't even play for the full third quarter in general. And so, yeah, the Spurs are also a tanking side, and they're not a particularly good one, but it is still a back-to-back, and the Warriors get exactly what they needed out of Phoenix tonight.
No, I think that's the perfect way to put it, right? Like the whole goal tonight is, Phoenix doesn't really care about the rest of their season. You're flying back home to play a back-to-back against the Spurs. You just want to take care of business as quickly as possible. Nobody played more than 26 minutes. And, I think it's funny that they got Draymond to exactly 20 because then it counts as a game played for him, I believe, in terms of like getting him the defensive player of the year. He needs to get to that 65 game threshold. So I think that was pretty intentional to get Draymond exactly 20 minutes. I've heard that's a thing. I could be wrong on that, but no, it was just a professional win, and it looks like the Spurs are giving the Clippers a tough fight right now. So it looks like this thing is probably going to go all 48 minutes. Clippers are probably going to win, but Spurs are going to be a little bit tired. Clips got the Rockets tomorrow on a back-to-back, and with all the seeding stuff going on, it's about just, on a night like this, just take care of business as quickly as possible and keep everybody rested for this kind of 3-game stretch run where they got, well, I guess it's technically 3 games in 4 days to finish the season.
Yeah, and like in some ways, the Spurs, who have essentially let all their veterans go for the season, whether it's by injury with like De'Aaron Fox or Chris Paul at this stage, it's just like who cares? And they're playing a bunch of guys who are playing for NBA contracts, so at least you're going to get effort, which is the opposite of what I saw from the Suns. The Suns, it was just like this is like the worst of the worst with the NBA, which is a bunch of guys who have quit on their team on every level. I wanted to talk about how great Pods looked tonight and the consistent leap he's taking, but it almost feels disingenuous when you look at the effort they're playing against.
No, I mean, I think it's all fair. Like Pods looks fantastic. I mean, it's his version of whatever, Poole's 2022 leap was. And we'll see how real it is come playoff time. And, over these next couple games, can he play like this against the Clippers in probably a very meaningful last game of the season? But he looks like this. He looked like this against the Lakers and against Memphis, or not as much against Memphis, but against the Lakers, against the Nuggets. Like it seems to be very real. He's one of the only guys who played well against the Rockets. So it seems to be real and he seems to be here, but That again, Phoenix tonight, that was one of the most 1-2-3 Cancun games I've ever seen in my
I
entire
know,
life.
right?
Like they are so checked out. Like they didn't it looked like they almost wanted to lose tonight because they knew it eliminated them from play-in contention and they can just basically pack their bags for the season.
It's so bad. Like, if anything, can we talk Bradley Beal for a minute? Let's go there. Bradley Beal, Warrior legend, getting a statue for helping deliver Jimmy to the Warriors. There was a time 4 or 5 years ago where I wanted Bradley Beal on the Warriors.
Same.
And I will defend that take because that was Bradley Beal before the Supermax, before the no trade clause, and the Bradley Beal who was dueling with Steph for leading scorer in the league. And it's not that he was as good a scorer as Steph, but like 30 is 30, man. It's not easy to score 30 in the league. He looked excellent back then. And man, I feel like this is something we don't really talk about enough with the NBA. The money is so big that sometimes it's about just finding players where the incentives align. Because for a lot of guys, if the situation isn't right, hey man, check still hits the bank account. And they could be, he looks so checked out. I actually don't think he's washed. I just think he reads the writing on the wall with this team. And it's just like, I don't care. And granted, I'm not saying that's an attitude I'd want on the Warriors in any capacity, but it's just like watching the way this is played out, like, wow.
I mean, Steph hit a look away 3 in the first over Beal from the right corner. And it was like I don't know, a 16-9 game at that point. The game was like not out of reach by any means. And Beal was like pumping him up and laughing as they ran back down the floor. He was like laughing with Steph, like gave him a pat on the butt, and it looks like he was his teammate. And I think part of it too is like obviously the money plays a big factor, especially when Beal's making like $50 million a year. He's making an absurd number. Like you said, the check still hits the same. But not only that, and I think you see this with a different level of player, but Kyle Kuzma as well a little bit. Like he spent 3 to 4 years just kind of wasting away in Washington. And now he's playing for the Bucks, and it's like he almost forgot how to play winning basketball. When you're talking about a guy in 2020 with Kuzma, like, he wasn't like a massive part. It wasn't a massive part of that Lakers team, but he was an essential role player to winning that Mickey Mouse championship in the bubble. But like he still was on a very good team playing an essential role, and he has not been able to recapture that with the Bucks so far. And I think what you're seeing with Beal is obviously, like you said, he's checked out, but at this point, I don't know if he could go to a winning situation and kind of reestablish the right mentality because it's been so long since basketball has mattered to him. Because we're not only talking about the Phoenix years, we're talking about his last couple of Washington years too.
Oh, I almost disagree with you there, but like my broader take thinking about this is like how much culture matters. And this in some ways dovetails perfectly into the conversation we're going to have about like Mike Malone. And the most interesting part of the Warriors game was Steve Kerr opining about the Mike Malone shocking firing in Denver. And we'll get to it in a minute, but it's like so many talented players in this league, given how much money there is, given, how many different incentives there are for different players. I think culture matters more than anything now because I just feel like it's a butterfly effect for someone like Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal ends up traded to the Warriors. His career looks completely different. He gets in a situation with Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Steve Kerr, and everything's about winning. And I don't know if they win a title. To be clear, I'm not saying it's a better outcome than what they had from 2021 to 2024. It's kind of hard. Even with the down years there, they did still win a ring,
Mm-hmm.
And you can't say they would have won one with Bradley Beal. But I don't think his career turns into kind of a laughing footnote the way it is right now. I think they play meaningful basketball. I think he's averaging 20 to 25 points a game. I think there's kind of these questions of, do they have enough wing defense around Steph and Beal? And like maybe they're a middling playoff team, but it just looks so much different because everything with the Warriors starts with Steph and is reinforced by Steve Kerr the entire way down. They don't get into these bullshit situations like what Phoenix is in. Even at their worst last year, when you and I were frustrated, it wasn't this. It wasn't 1-2-3 Cancun. It was a lot of Steph and Draymond being really annoyed at the situation, but those dudes do not end up in situations like this. And that's just kind of like, man, his career completely went a different way than I thought it was going to. And on the flip side, like someone like Andrew Wiggins, who had that terrible reputation, then he comes to the Warriors, he plays his role. Wherever his career goes from now, he will never be remembered as like a laughing stock, right? Like he will always be like, okay, oh yeah, he wasn't quite the number one pick that we all thought, but like 2022, remember what he did? Like that'll always be kind of the thing. And just so much of the NBA, in my opinion, especially as the money rises and essentially everyone's a winner in life in the NBA now. Like DeAndre Ayton's a winner in life. Like all these guys have won. Their careers are now more defined by the situations they're in. And I would argue stuff that Steve Kerr talks about that sometimes you and I roll our eyes about, or sometimes it's just like, it's a little too much here and there, but it's like, I think it matters more than it's ever mattered in terms of building a culture, because it's too easy for a player who's talented just be like, you know what? Who cares? I'll go out there, I'll shoot the ball, and I'm going to get my check.
Yeah, and I think just in general, there's less knuckleheads in the league. Like there isn't really a team like the 2005 to 2008 or 9 Warriors where you have like Steven Jackson, Barron, like a bunch of guys where you don't know if they're gonna like show up to practice the next day. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but just like there was a chance that they might be out at the club till 6 a.m. and they're going in to shoot around still drunk. And that's not to say that doesn't happen in the NBA anymore. But if you kind of track the history of the NBA from like the 80s, 90s, 2000s on, it's almost like the NBA is almost becoming like a tennis or a golf in a way where like there's so many guys who had dads that played in the league. So they're getting this understanding of what professional sports look like from such a young age. So yeah, they're all coming in pretty polished. Like you, especially like the top guys, you don't really see guys who aren't polished in their personal life or like they don't have all their stuff together. You just look at Wemby and Cooper these last 2 years. They're all about just being the best possible player they can be. There's no questions, there's no character questions, there's no anything like that. And I think that's gonna be a trend that continues. So I think you're spot on. And yeah, even at their, like you said, at their worst with the Warriors, like they were the 10 seed last year and they played like shit in the play and got blown out by the Kings. But it was never like the effort wasn't there. It was just like they didn't have enough talent at the end of the day, but they weren't quitting on the season like this Phoenix team is. And like you see a lot of teams do. Towards a lot of parts of the season.
Yeah. I mean that's really where it is, and that's like the main thing here. Meanwhile, you look at the Warriors here. The biggest thing you could say about tonight's game was, look, they let one slip away against Houston. It's kind of a bad game. You and I can both kind of acknowledge 4th game in 6 nights. They've been playing really good ball. Sometimes that happens. And to me, what was more important is, do we get a professional bounce back from it? And we got that. And that's culture. That's a team that's bought in to they were talking about the fouls and stuff afterwards, but like the reality is, you saw Steph laughing on the podium. Yeah. They flushed that one and they're like, it's over. Hey, who cares? Move on to the next one. And that's when you have a good culture and a locked in team. And they basically showed me everything I need to see tonight, even though this was, to your point, the most 1-2-3 Cancun game of a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a bit of a scheduled loss on Sunday. You would have thought it would have been the Nuggets game on Friday, but it actually ended up being that Rockets game on Sunday.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, we will. But no, I mean, look, just to point to culture, look, this team was 25-26 at the time of the Jimmy trade. They get a chance to win 50 games now. Like if they win out, they will be a 50-win team. And not obviously that's a testament to Jimmy coming in and establishing a new identity, being who he is, being a top 20, 25 player in the NBA, transforming the team in a lot of ways, reviving Steph and Dre's belief. There's so many things you can point to, but the season could have gone off the rails many times. And even in the worst moments, these guys, they just kept fighting, even when they would lose 4 out of 5, 5 out of 8. You know what I mean? Like they didn't really let the season slip away how it could have, or at least let the culture spiral. And that was even the word at the time of the trade. Everybody was like, sometimes teams don't really care when a guy gets traded because the season's slipping away. It was a sad locker room when Andrew Wiggins got traded away. And everybody kept talking about how bought in everybody still was, despite the fact they were losing. And again, that just goes to show you how important, like having obviously leaders like Steph and Dre are. And then, it all trickles down from there.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I didn't play Prize Picks on tonight's game. And part of it was because I had a sneaky suspicion it was going to be like this, and I didn't want to play. Ironically, Steph hit the over. I should have taken it. But it was like, what it's like when they go 3-quarters game, and it's like he played a phenomenal game, but he didn't hit the number. Sometimes I play it a little conservative on that sort of thing. That said, very hyped for the Masters this weekend, guys. Springtime is here. Baseball season is underway. Don't miss your chance to get in your favorite players in the Prize Picks lineup. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take more or less with your shot to win up to $1,000 extra cash. More exciting is Masters Week, and now is the time to build your own golf lineup. Put your skills to the test, and we want to watch who will win the green jacket. Tuesday night, who do you have winning the Masters?
You know, it's been a long time since Rory has won a major. We're going up over 10 years now, and I pay attention to golf a little bit. And I think it's for his time. I think it'll complete the career Grand Slam for him. His game's in a good place. So if you have to leave it up to me, and I don't want to go Scotty because that's just boring. He wins every week. I got to go Rory.
Sky's the favorite, so yes,
of course.
But yes, I'm going Bryson. I'm feeling it. A little rainy today in Augusta means it won't play as well. Got to be able to hit the ball a little harder. Playing for my guy, the number one golfer on YouTube. No, but it's fun. Like, look, I'm a very casual golf guy. Like, if you're talking about sports, it's not that I don't appreciate it. It's just that in terms of the sports I play the most, I've known the most my entire life, and quite frankly, I've excelled at the most. This one's very low on the list. It's not my number one game. It's the number one game I'm trying to get better at, but it's not my number one game. You know what I mean? So, but with Prize Picks, it makes getting into the Masters just a little more fun. You know, I want to see what's happening. I'm going to create some lineups. It's not just about picking who's winning. I think I'm playing John Ram on getting more than 3 birdies on the opener on Thursday. Like, there's a lot of fun ways to kind of get in on the action, have a little fun with this. Win a little money when doing so. So, guys, download the app today. Use the code LIGHTYEARS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5. That's code LIGHTYEARS. $50 instantly when you play your first $5. Prize Picks, run your game.
And speaking of golf, we got a new sponsor today. PXG golf clubs and irons. The time has come to get some new golf clubs, and that means one thing: heading over to your local PXG store for a fitting. They make the best golf clubs, period. So PXG was nice enough to have us all in for a fitting in our separate locations. I did mine down in Huntington Beach here in California. It's actually pretty close to my house, so that was really nice. They had me try out the PXG, the Gen 6 irons, and they're just, I think the thing that stood out to me the most is I've actually played a set of PXGs before. Luckily enough, just one time I was at a course, rented some, and look, I think the biggest thing that I noticed for my game is they just every club goes about 20 to 30 yards further. And as like just an amateur who's trying to get better at the game, like any extra
that
yard
matters. That really matters.
It matters so much. Instead of my drive going 230, 240, now I'm 260, 270 out there. And instead of hitting a 6 iron into the green, you're hitting an 8 iron. And they're a little bit more forgiving than your typical club. It's essentially a bunch of people came over from Ping and they started this new company. It's a really cool story, and they go into that during the fitting. And it's just, to me, it's really from just the fitting session, the one round that I played with them, it's the fastest way to improve your performance on the golf course is just by going in, getting fitted. They'll get you guys right. So schedule your fitting today, and for a limited time, you can save up to 20% on your entire order. Head over to pxg.com/lightyears. That's pxg.com/lightyears to save up to 20% on your entire order. pxg.com/lightyears. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
It's very true. I'm actually going in for my fitting next week. That's why I was like, Tommy, you need to speak to it because you actually did the fitting last week. Me, I'm dragging ass. I'm a week away from getting there, but I'm looking forward to it because, like you, I could use any help.
Yep.
And if this is going to add 10, 20 yards on my drive, well worth it because God knows I'll never get there on my own.
No, I can speak to that for sure. They're awesome to hit, man. They just, you feel like when you make contact with the ball, it's actually going to go the right direction instead of, using some older, crappier clubs.
Guys, I feel like we need to talk about the big story today. And first things first, how scale of 0 to 10, how shocked were you when you heard Mike Malone got fired?
I feel like my scale for these things is so jaded now because of the Luka trade. Like in a post Luka trade world, and then even in just a post like Taylor Jenkins firing with a week and a half left in the season, you're like, I'm almost a little bit numb to it. And there was some stuff floating around the last couple of days with comments Malone had been making, and there was rumblings that he was probably maybe going to get fired after the season. But for it to happen right now, I mean, 8, 9, and it probably would have been a 10 without, like I said, the Luka trade and the Jenkins firing. But I think there's just a lot of angst surrounding a lot of these contenders right now because of the increased parity in the league. Like everything is so congested, especially in the West, and a lot of these teams are just feeling pressure. But I think, pretty sure Shams tweeted after the firing, said this is the latest a coach has ever got fired in the season. Well, tied with, I want to say like Hubie in like 1979, 1980. So this is since 45 years we're talking here. So it's an incredibly rare thing. And it seems so hasty in so many ways.
Yeah. I mean, my first thought is who had a stateside first, Mike Malone or Jokic?
Calvin Booth. Let's go with that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you're right. Like there's been noise floating that, they're not on the same page. Mike Malone wanted veterans. The organization wanted him to play young guys. There's an irony to the 2 timeline schism in the Denver Nuggets there. But that is really what's going on. Mike Malone won a title less than 2 years ago, and he's loyal to his guys. He's loyal to Jokic. Okay, everyone should be loyal to Jokic. But like on the more controversial side, loyal to Jamal Murray, who's been probably less consistent than they'd like with his health, with his staying in shape, with just performance in general. Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, favoring veterans like Russell Westbrook over young guys that the organization feels strongly about. I mean, does this not just sound familiar to you? Like, have you not heard? Like, it's kind of like reading this. My first thought on the whole, or sorry, one of my first thoughts is like, man, kind of makes me appreciate the Warriors because all this shit was going on with the Warriors for a couple of years here, and you and I were frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
But to Joe's credit, they didn't go with the nuclear option of like, we're going to get rid of him. We're doing it our way. Like, it seems insane to me to fire a championship level coach who has complete buy-in of your best player in franchise history. Not just your best player. Like, you will never have a better player than Jokic.
No. And I think, there was definitely some friction at times behind the scenes with the Warriors over the last couple of years. It never reached this incendiary level like it did with the Nuggets, but like it was obvious that there was some friction at times and some disagreements and about what direction, how many young guys do we need to play? Do we need more young guys? Do we need more vets? And I think they've kind of smoothed most of that out now. I think Dunleavy's been a really nice intermediary. He's been willing to act quicker on some things than Bob was. Maybe I think Bob had gotten pretty complacent and just really didn't want to fight the everyday battles with Joe anymore, which I can understand. But like you said, they never hit the nuclear option. And even Bob leaving, it wasn't handled in such a way of a firing. It was, Bob's decision to go and all these different things. But, I was talking with some people earlier today about the firing. And, one of my first thoughts too was you got to give Kerr credit for, not only obviously being able to kind of navigate stuff with the front office, but also keeping Steph and Dre bought in this entire time. And obviously he built up even more cachet than Malone had with Jokic or Murray or MPJ or any of these guys. But at the same time, there were some really like tough days over the past 5-6 years, and one thing that's never happened is Steph and Dre have never, ever wavered in their belief in Kerr. And I think that speaks to as much as, like you said, the culture, like we talked about earlier, but that plays as much of a role in Kerr still being a part of this organization as I think as much as anything, because I'm sure there were thoughts from the front office at times to go a different direction, but they also knew if they do that, you risk losing the best player in franchise history in Steph and the best defensive player of the past 15, 20 years in Draymond. You risk losing their buy-in, and then it might go really nuclear. And obviously you got to give Joe some credit too, right? Like we've been, I think, at different times, we've been very tough on Lake.
Give it up to Joe.
No, hey, look, man, everything's coming up Joe right now. Pods is taking the lead. The 2 timelines is coming into action. We got young guys you got 2 young guys in the starting lineup, 3 veterans. Like it's all coming together for Joe right now. But he never, as I think maybe impulsive as Lake can be sometimes, he never, like I said, he never hit that nuclear option, and he never went like that crazy direction of just blowing everything up when he probably could have.
I do think he comes across crazy when he speaks half the time, where he's just so bombastic, right?
Yeah.
And he comes across emotional. And you hear from people like he is emotional. Like he goes through the fan roller coaster of like being pissed when things are bad and like high when things are good and all that stuff. But just look around the league, man. The fact that they have not actually done the, hit the red button, the nuclear button, like actually do that, it does speak to the level of discipline you need to actually be a championship organization.
Mhm.
And I think that to me is the thing I take away from this. To your point, like they've all been working together for well over a decade. I'm sure there's been not days, I'm sure there's been months, seasons where they're just like, man, I don't know how much longer I can do this. I'm so tired of this motherfucker talking about James Wiseman all day. I'm so tired of it, and I'm just like, and I don't mean that like in a negative way, but it's like you worked with someone for that long, you know everything.
Mhm.
And you also, there's little things they do that annoy you. And when things aren't going well, those little things bother you more than the big things. And that's how I look at the Nugget situation in the sense of they want a title. Since they won a title, they've taken a step backwards. And I don't know if that's Calvin Booth's fault. I don't know if that's ownership's fault. I don't know if that's Mike Malone's fault. I kind of think ownership telling them to not spend in the tax is the number one reason. And the number two is Calvin Booth, wanting to go young around that and then being stuck in this situation where they have, and it reminds me of the Warriors, a superstar, 2 to 3 awesome vets, and then a bunch of young guys who are like woefully unready to play at that level. That's like kind of how it feels to me. And I understand every person on the Nuggets organization's feelings there. I understand management being like, we need to be able to make this more sustainable. And Mike Malone has to give young guys a little more opportunity. And I understand Mike Malone being like, I just want a title. Just let me do it my way. I know what I'm talking about here. You can't just throw Peyton Watson in here and expect it to work. Like that's not like, I know Jokic makes everyone better, but I promise you there's a reason I'm not playing him the way you want me to play him. And all of that is totally fair. And I get all of it, but they did what the Warriors didn't do, which is just like, it's just I say fuck it at this point, right? Decide to overreact to the fact this team is skidding and get rid of a championship level coach. And I don't know, man. I don't think this is going to get better for Denver. Forget this playoff run. You think they're bringing in a coach who's going to fix that problem next year?
I mean, who are even the options? Like say which I think Nuggets fans' complaints about Malone have been very similar to Warriors fans' complaints about Kerr at certain
They're all
points.
fair.
Yeah,
They're all fair. Like
sure.
no coach is perfect. There's trade-offs, and those trade-offs are really annoying sometimes.
Yeah, and they are, but at the end of the day, do you want to have a coach that's like fantastic at developing young talent, or do you want to have a coach who can lead you to a championship? And I always choose the latter. Like it's very rare that you get a guy who's both. Like Dagnall has done a fantastic job developing this young talent in OKC. His entire staff has. Is he a championship level coach? A lot of the stuff would tell us he is. Makes good in-game adjustments. He understands the game well, and like he's developed all these young guys, but you don't know until they do it. Like maybe he can't get them over the hump. It's the Mark Jackson versus Steve Kerr thing. Jackson was great for developing Steph and Clay and Draymond and all these other guys when they were younger, but that doesn't necessarily mean he can get you over the hump. And in terms of what direction they go, first of all, they got to find a GM, and the name that's already floating around, our good friend.
I don't buy that.
I don't either. I think he's very content with where he's at, but our good friend Bob Myers is a name floating around. I'm sure they'll find a good GM. I would assume
Bob's
they do.
of the Kroenke saying, hey, if you put like a 4 in front of it with a
Right.
0, with enough zeros behind it, maybe.
Yeah, it's going to be an attractive job, no doubt, like both the GM job and the coaching job, because who wouldn't want a chance to build a team around Jokic, and who wouldn't want a chance to coach Jokic?
In his prime.
Yeah, exactly. He's got at least 3 to 4 more years like this left, one would assume, unless, something crazy happens. But I don't even know what direction they go. Like maybe Budenholzer shakes free. Maybe, it's always impossible to say who's going to be. Maybe it's Taylor Jenkins. Who the hell knows?
Sure.
But at the end of the day, now they are directionless in the middle of one of the 5 best players of the last 20 years primes, and that's not a great spot to be
in the middle of one of maybe his best year individually.
Yep.
Like he just doesn't miss shots anymore. It's pretty wild.
It's insane. It's insane how
He's
good he is.
gonna casually walk into a 30, 13, and 10 season with 65% on twos, 42% on three. Like he's playing out of his mind individually.
He's an absurd player.
Yeah, no, it's wild. This Steve Kerr's quotes. I thought this is an interesting one. He was shocked. Coaches are always shocked when their coaches get fired, particularly coaches who have accomplished something. They always feel like if you build that equity, you get a little space, you get a little grace when things don't go the way you want to. And it's honestly the right mindset to have, but you don't get there. He did talk about his own future here. And he goes, how long do you want to do this? I don't know. I love what I do. I'm in an amazing position with great support from my ownership, management, and obviously most talented players. The idea of continuing with this group is very appealing. I love it, but who knows how long that lasts? I don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about it. I just enjoy it, and we'll see where it all goes.
I mean, I think Steve mostly knows his future is tied to whatever Steph and Dre decide to do with the next 3 to 4 to 5 years of their careers. I don't think he has much of a desire to be with the team beyond that. I don't know if he even has a desire to coach. This has been a long 10, 11, and it could extend up to 15 years. And all of it has been under the spotlight. Like from the moment he basically took over the job. And that is, I mean, if you look at pictures of Steve from the time he took the job in 2014, 15, and some of that's the surgery, but some of it's just the way this job ages you, right? And yeah, I just, like you said, I think the equity that Malone has built up, you wouldn't expect this to happen. And I think Steve knows he's in a position now where this is never really going to happen to him, at least not as long as Steph and Dre are around. But it still sends a little bit of a shiver down your spine as an NBA coach. Like you could easily be next, and now you're on the hunt for the next job.
Do you think Steph plays for another coach?
No. I don't really see a world where that happens at this point. I could have seen it maybe coming off of 22-23 or even off of last season. If this season had really continued to slide and they had made the Jimmy trade, I think it would have been distinctly more possible. But at this point, I think they're all kind of revived. Steph, Dre, Kerr. And I just don't – it would have to be something that's unforeseen at this point, because I think the way that Jimmy's revitalized this organization it's injected new life into everybody clearly.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think they've reached a point where these guys are going out together.
Yeah.
And it may be glorious or it may be kind of ugly at the end, but they're going out together. It's been too long.
Yeah, and I think especially with even after losing Clay, that was obviously a tough decision for everybody, but I don't think they're going to really cut down that core group anymore. And that would play a factor into Kerr being fired or not, but I think they've all I think these three specifically have decided they want to go out together. They want to go out on their own terms. It's Via time, huh? Is it Via time?
It's Via time.
Yeah. My favorites. Light Years Podcast is brought to you by Via. 420 is around the corner, and there is no better time to elevate your wellness routine. Whether you want to relax, recharge, or refocus, Via has the perfect lineup for you. With products ranging from 0 to high cannabinoid levels, Via lets you fully customize your experience to fit your needs. And the best part, Via legally ships across the U.S., discreet, direct to your door, no medical card required, and backed by a worry-free guarantee. Not sure where to start? Take Via's product finder quiz to get personalized recommendations tailored to your needs. It can take less than 60 seconds to complete. Me personally, I just placed another order for Via's Zen, their Sleep CBD gummies, and the Focus CBD gummies. They're my two favorite products from Via. I would highly, highly, highly recommend them to anybody who wants to get into the CBD world. So if you're 21 plus, treat yourself to Via's annual spring 420 sale. Black Friday level savings up to 35% site-wide right now, up to 50% off packs and bundles, and get a free gift plus more savings with your first purchase over $50 using our exclusive code LIGHTYEARS at the link in our description. Plus, enjoy free shipping on orders over 50. So enhance your everyday with Via.
Nice. Guys, I'm here to tell you about Timeline. Guys, cellular health is the foundation of well-being and longevity. With MitoPure supplements, you can support your health by encouraging cellular renewal. MitoPure recharges your cells, supporting any goals by helping all your systems work better. With MitoPure, you'll feel the difference in your energy levels, your workouts, your endurance, and your recovery. MitoPure is the only supplement on the market clinically proven to target the effects of age-related cellular decline. It's really simple, guys. MitoPure is research-backed innovation that unlocks you to your fullest potential. I've taken it, and I can tell you it's been a game changer. My workouts are better. I feel like I have more energy. I can rest well. No, I'm taking my health. Guys, I'm up at 5 a.m. chasing a toddler, and I'm podcasting till 11. That's not possible without supplements. I also have a full-time job in between, just FYI. So, I'm worried about my cellular decline. And I need these little things to get me going. So, guys, right now, Timeline is offering you 10% off your order of MitoPure. Go to timeline.com/lightyears. That's timeline.com/lightyears.
Burning the candle at both ends, man.
Yeah, dude. I enjoy it. I love what I do. I have fun with it. But, it does wear on you. And those are the things you need to, keep yourself young, have the energy, keep it going. I wanted to ask you a question. Okay. So Mike Malone has been had been, wow, it's kind of weird to say. He's been the coach of the Denver Nuggets since 2015. So this is his 10th season. A lot of coaches don't reach 10 seasons. Obviously, Steve Kerr is in year 11. He's been coaching the Warriors for 11 years. Pop, get well. He's obviously well beyond that, and hopefully he keeps coaching. But if not, it's a great run. And Spoelstra, obviously, has been the head coach of the Heat for 15 years at this point. My question for you is, who will be the next coach to be with an organization for 10 plus years? It feels like it's increasingly super rare to happen. Like, I thought Mike Malone was so safe, and technically this is his 10th year. He will not complete 10 full seasons, which really feels screwed up, by the way. But you know what I'm saying? Like, to get to 10 full seasons.
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of said earlier, I think with the increased parity in the league because of the new CBA and the cap rules and how restrictive the luxury taxes are, the first and second apron, I think the increased parity it's increased the anxiety in a lot of front offices. And if they feel like things aren't going right, they want to make changes right away. And that might just be some of that might be the modern media complex too. Like, there's a lot of things that play into it, but it's really tough to say. I mean, obviously the easy bets right now are like a Dagnall in OKC. I would say Missoula in Boston definitely has a chance if that core like kind of continues their run. Depends what way they take their roster. They have new ownership group coming in, so who knows what direction Boston goes. But I'm going to throw out kind of think a little bit more off the wall one. I think Will Hardy has a chance in Utah. I know they're terrible. They're clearly tanking.
Hipster.
I know. I had to throw one hipster take in there. I can't just go straight down the middle with this stuff. I think he's already been there for this year 3 for him. He seems to have buy-in from ownership. They're clearly tanking for a reason, but he seems to have a very good reputation around the league. His guys seem to be bought in despite the fact that they're, going to win 18 to 20 games this year, whatever it is. Maybe they get Cooper and that vaults them to the next level. But I think Hardy has a chance just because despite all of like the egregious tanking and Danny Ainge just being like unwilling to trade with anybody unless he's getting an absolute king's ransom, I think they're all kind of rowing in the same direction. And that matters so much for keeping a coach around. I don't see them like moving quickly and breaking things like a lot of organizations are doing nowadays.
Here's a wild stat for you. With Mike Malone being fired, okay, so we know Pop, the most tenured coach, Spo, the second most tenured coach since 2008, Steve Kerr, the third most tenured coach since 2014 in the year 11. Who is the fourth most tenured active coach right now?
Oh, wow.
I just looked this up. I'm going to be honest with you. It wouldn't have been my first guess. That might throw you through a...
No, man, that is really tough. Yeah, with Malone gone, I'm going to say, I mean, I almost would have said Jenkins before he got fired. I think he would have been way up there. Who's somebody in like the middle? Tibbs has been with New York for 3 years. Man, I have legitimately no clue.
All right. If I told you there were the next closest coach was hired in 2020, which means they've been there for this is their 5th season. There are 4 coaches who've been hired in 2020, and basically the bubble year, or the what do you call it? The COVID year, 2020,
Yeah.
2021 was their first year. There are 4 coaches.
I see the chat throwing out Chris Finch. I think that might be one of them. Is Chris Finch one of the guys?
Nope.
Really?
Next year, but close. But
Yeah.
no.
Okay. Billy D. Chat just threw out Billy Donovan. I think that might be one of them.
That's correct. That's one.
Okay. Billy Donovan. I'd say Ty Lue.
That's 2.
God, I almost want to pull up like the NBA standing just so I can see all the teams. This is the toughest exercise you've ever sprung on me. This is crazy. I legitimately have no idea. So we got 2. Mike Brown's obviously out. God, it's not the Pistons. Ime's been with the Rockets for a couple years. Carlisle, is Carlisle one of them?
Nope.
Wow.
Carlisle and Finch for 2021. They were hired after. They're hired in the 2021-2022 season. If that makes sense.
Are these teams that are not currently in the playoff picture?
No, that's not the case at all.
Okay.
They're actually both clear playoff teams, so non-play-in teams.
Okay.
And that there's 2 others. So you got Billy D and Ty Lue, the 2 remaining ones who were hired in July of 2020 and November of 2020. So both were before the season started, to be clear. They're coaching teams that will clearly make the playoffs.
Man, Dagnall's one of them in OKC?
Yes. Dagnall was hired in November of 2020.
We're not counting Missoula, right? Because Missoula took over the job after the 2022 finals, but he
has not been the head coach.
Yeah, he was on the staff.
He's technically not the head coach until 2022. Yeah.
Okay. I have no clue on the last one. You're gonna have to give that one to me.
Tibbs.
Okay, I said Tibbs. All right, that was the first one I said.
You said it's not Tibbs, and I tried really hard to hold a straight face. So.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's late, man. It's been a long day.
It's okay. That was a fun trivia exercise. I think for me, I didn't answer the question. I'm gonna go. Who's the coach? Because it's wild. After Kerr, no coaches coached their team for more than 5 years. So really, the question is like, who's gonna be with the same team for another 5+ years, right? Mm-hmm. And given the way that just how volatile the league is, like that's not an easy thing to guess. I would bet against Tibbs. I would bet against Billy D. I'd honestly bet against Ty Lue too. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to go Dagnall.
Yeah.
But even that feels like, look, man, Thunder underachieve a couple years in a row. They're going to look at the coach as the place to potentially get them over the hump. So I don't even know if I want to go with him. Yeah, I'm going to go Joe Mass. I'll go Joe Mass. Okay. Joe Mazzulla. I don't think the Celtics are kicking him out anytime soon. I think he's going to hit the 10-year mark. That's my guess.
Will Hardy, man, I'm telling you, that's going to get you your best odds on Prize Picks is betting on Will Hardy to be the next guy who coaches for 10 years.
I mean, Mazzulla needs to coach 7 years to get there. That's a long time.
It is.
It's a lot of opportunities to. I don't know. I'm still kind of shocked, honestly. I don't know how else to put it. We might as well go with this. Let's have some fun. Who do you have winning Coach of the Year this year?
I mean, I think it's going to come down to. It should come down to Kenny A or Dagnall. It should, and I think Dagnall won it last year, so I'd assume they give it to Atkinson, especially considering the year-over-year improvement. Not everybody had OKC as like a contender coming into this season. They were a lot of people's pick to either make the finals or win the championship. I don't think anybody had Cleveland winning 60+ games, looking as good as they did, being the number 1 seed in the East, especially with Boston coming off the championship last season. So I think it'll be Kenny A.
Kenny is the front runner for me. I'm surprised. I have 2 coaches ahead of Mark Dagnall. Not even that I think they're better coaches, just like if I had a mythical ballot, who I would put on there. One is JB in Detroit.
Yep.
They have tripled their win total. Now, I don't know how much of that is more of a comment on how much of a dumpster fire they were last year, but end of the day, Detroit, I think, can win a round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
In the East, they went from the most disgusting team in the East to a very respectable, well-coached side. So he definitely deserves some love. The one I actually think is the closest contender to Kenny, and I go back and forth on this, is Ime.
Yeah.
Rockets are going to be the 2 seed. I know everyone knew they were going to be good after last year, but you're so full of shit if you thought they were going to be the 2 seed. Like they're going to end up winning 14 more games or 13 more games than the team from last year. They'll be like a 54-win team. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think they have a superstar. I love Ahmed. Ahmed Thompson's an excellent player, and he may be a superstar. He's certainly a great defender already, but like they're doing it by being a very well-coached side. Unless you're a big Şengün guy, like maybe you think Şengün's a superstar, but like I just think he deserves a little more love in this Coach of the Year thing. And with that said, Kenny is like the obvious one because Cleveland went from like a middling playoff side to like a machine. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it.
I do think Ime definitely deserves some love, but at the same time, with the way that everything went down in Boston, I just don't see him.
Should and would are two different things.
Right. I just don't see him winning Coach of the Year. But no, they've been, I think, coming into kind of the post All-Star break stretch, right? Like you just kind of looking at the standings, like, oh, the Rockets could tumble a little bit, and they've just kept winning games. And we saw how hard they play, how bought in they are to what Ime is selling, and I think with Ime and JB both, are there 2 guys that you would want more than those 2, than either one of those guys? If your team is kind of down in the dumps and they're a tanking team, they're a lottery team, I don't know if there's 2 better coaches in the league right now to come in and kind of turn the franchise around. JB did it in Cleveland, and now he's done it with Detroit in 1 year. And Ime's kind of done the same thing with the Rockets over the last 2 seasons. Like they can come in and essentially, like we talked about all show, they can change your culture. And that is one of the most difficult things to do in the entire NBA.
And I think like looking at what's going on in Phoenix, like it means something to me. Like, would Phoenix be this bad if that Ime Udoka?
No.
I think he would have. I think he would have probably fought their stars by now. But they would have got to like the point of like we're getting this on track, or one of us is getting fired. But we're not going on this like quiet quit tour. Like to your point, like 1, 2, 3 Cancun basketball for 45 games, which is kind of what Phoenix has been on that way. And I don't know, maybe it's fresher in my mind. Like this is a very coaching heavy episode, or thinking about coaching, I guess, is where I'm at. But it's kind of like you're watching Phoenix, just a lifeless, wasted potential team. You see what Denver did today, which is shocking, and it will continue to be shocking to me. And like, yeah, you look at the Warriors, and it's just like it matters. Yeah, every cliche that every coach has told you your entire life. Yeah, sometimes you roll your eyes at it, but there is an underlying truth to it. There is that stuff does matter, and you see what it looks like when a team is rudderless.
Absolutely. No, it all matters, and that's you kind of alluded to it, but all this stuff with Steve, like how almost like esoteric and
Yeah.
like you just like almost not condescending, that's not the right word, but like just how like existential he can get with all of like his philosophies of life and coaching. And it's like it's grating and it's annoying as like a fan, but all that
it's
stuff
really
matters.
annoying when they're mediocre and you're like, I get it, but just run a fucking pick and roll, dude.
Yeah. Right. But like there is an ethos behind like the reason he runs the offense that he runs. The same reason that Phil wanted to run the triangle. When everybody feels involved, everybody feels involved. Like if you feel like you're doing meaningful stuff out in the court instead of just standing in the corner with your finger up your nose, like you're going to feel more involved. You're going to feel more bought into the whole process. And, Steve can definitely, like, he has moments where he's annoying, but at the end of the day, he's built probably the best culture in the NBA at this point, outside of maybe like we've alluded to Miami or San Antonio. So yeah, you got to give the guy his credit at the end of the day, especially when you see something like what happened.
And at this point, you can't really even say those teams have built better cultures than Steve.
No.
I think over the long haul, you can say they've all been equal, but like, that's really what it is. It's like he's put himself in the Popovich class as far as I'm concerned. Pop's 25 years, 28 years,
Yeah,
that
long
range.
time.
So like you can't, it's like apples to oranges, 11 years to that longevity, but it's the same concept, which is like, we're going to do things this way. Sometimes we'll have down years, but more often than not, you're going to be very proud of the product that you see at the end of the tunnel. So
do we, I mean, I couldn't agree more on all that, but do we want to do a quick standings watch and then get out of here? Because a lot of shifting happened tonight in the.
I feel like tomorrow night we should do more standings watch, so I'll
Okay.
leave it at that. But like just
Okay.
a quick thing for those here, Minnesota losing. Whew, I at this point I will be very disappointed if the Warriors end up in the play-in, because yes, it's a possible outcome, but they're getting a lot of help across the board in terms of like Denver self-destructing, Memphis self-destructing, Minnesota, just they are a 48-win team. I don't know what else to say about them. Like, they're not bad, but they're exactly the type of team that blows a fourth quarter lead when they shouldn't. Everything's kind of set up pretty nicely for the Warriors to stay in that. I don't think they're going to get to 3, but stay in that 4 or 5 game and at least control their own destiny there.
Yeah, and the Clippers have actually jumped up to 4 now with their win over the Spurs tonight, which is they went from 7 to 4 with one win. They're now 47-32. But essentially, it just kind of, for everybody to kind of just like tickler file type of thing. If the Timberwolves beat the Grizzlies on Thursday, the Warriors' floor is now, even if they have 33 losses, they will be in the top 6. So if Minnesota and the Grizzlies both have 33 losses, the Grizzlies can get to 33 losses, or the Warriors can, and then they will still be in the playoffs. So if we're looking to root for something on Thursday, you want to root for the Wolves to beat the Grizzlies, and then the Warriors can afford to lose one game and stay in the top 6.
Yeah. That's kind of where we're at, and got to let this play out a couple more days. I'm almost 100% in the take care of business, and let's see what happens after the Friday game against the Portland Trailblazers, and we can make decisions on Sunday. Do they need to win on Sunday? Do they rest guys to get things deal with those decisions when you deal with them? But the most important thing is take care of the Spurs on Wednesday and take care of the Blazers on Friday, and then everything is good. To your point, they do those two things, it's very hard to see a scenario that has them falling into the plan.
Yep. No, that Minnesota loss, I don't think we can overstate how important that was tonight, just for setting them up in a better position to stay out of the play-in.
Appreciate everyone.
Thanks, everybody.